Hello guys, welcome to Torch Tales, Stories Behind the Hood. And most of you know me by now. I work for a manufacturing company and I travel the US and a little bit of abroad as well. And I came up with this crazy idea of sitting down and talking to friends about the industry. Not welding per se, but more their stories behind the industry and why they chose the industry, or maybe the industry chose them. And today I'm honored to have a good friend, Brad Davis, here. And I know a little bit about him, but I'm not gonna tell you what I know because that would be another show. So we're gonna just kind of talk to Brad and find some things about him, and hopefully you guys like the content. And if you do, great. If not, it'll be just the two of us watching this thing 4 or 5 years from now, right?
And our kids and everybody, right?
There you go, right? Just the five family members that we got. First of all, thank you.
Yep. Thanks,
Appreciate
Frank.
you being here.
Thanks, Frank.
And Brad, so I've met you a few years ago, you know, doing shows. You travel a little bit as well.
Yes.
I probably travel a little bit more than you.
Yes.
And but again, you know, you seem to be at every show or every other show, and that's great, you know, because it gets us exposed to the industry.
Yes.
But before we even talk about who you work for and everything else you do, so where is Brad from? Where are you from?
So I grew up in a small rural town in Northeast Ohio, about an hour from Cleveland, and about an hour and a half from Pittsburgh, right on the Pennsylvania-Ohio line, north of Youngstown, Ohio, but in a dairy and corn area of the state, I guess. When I was a child, I lived in Texas as well, outside of Houston for a little while, so I have a kind of a split background.
All right.
So
when you were a kid, you know, you growing up, you know, and kind of growing up, you know, between two areas, let's call it that, you know, did you have an idea that you were going to be in this industry? How did you stumble in the industry? What's your background? First of all, how long have you been in the industry?
So this is my 21st year. So only my 21st year.
Well, I'm only 11, so there you go. He has 10 on me.
Yeah. We're relative newcomers.
Pretty much.
You know, with that amount of experience. Yeah. But no, it's a weird story, but I'd always wanted to be a lawyer of all things.
All right.
And I went to college. I did an undergrad in psychology, and the last two classes, or the last class I had, was in legal research and writing, and where you had to do kind of like what a paralegal does.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, and I hated it. It was the class I hated the most out of my undergrad, and at that moment, I was like, I do not want to be a lawyer. Without disparaging it, you know, there's definitely a place for lawyers, but I didn't like the sheer amount of analysis needed, and there was just something that made me rethink my career choice. I ended up, at the time, I worked for a big box home improvement retailer. I was helping to pay my way through college. I was already kind of a lower level manager. I kind of threw myself into that while I finished, and then after that, I actually worked in that industry, in the Home Depot, Lowe's,
gotcha,
you know, type of industry. Worked with buying offices in North Carolina for Lowe's, and Atlanta for Home Depot. And,
so which one is better out of the two?
From a salesman's perspective, they're both incredibly difficult.
Really?
Yeah, they're both incredibly difficult. Home Depot used to do this thing called line review, where they would basically make you sit in front of a group of buyers and try to annihilate whatever you're trying to sell them, trying to break it down, you know, take whatever profit margin you had out of it. Now, I was on the service end, so I ran the service crews that kept the displays up. But so there were other salespeople that had harder jobs than I did, but it was a humiliating experience. Because you're like, okay, find me a way to get $5 more. I'm like, well, we're already not making much to begin with. So they both have their negatives. I enjoyed working with the management at Home Depot at that time, because they had a little bit more how do you say, they could make their own decisions a little bit more than those guys could.
Were you still in college while you were working for both, or you had already kind of moved?
No, I had graduated. I was living in Michigan, I went to school at Eastern Michigan, which is just outside of Ann Arbor, um, and I had graduated. I was living in Detroit, but I was flying probably at least once or twice a week, every week. So I had a year where I flew 100 times.
So you already were exposed to the traveling.
Yeah,
It's not something new.
Yeah, I've flown 500 or 600 times in my life, so
Really?
I'm used to kind of bouncing around. So,
all right. So here you are, Home Depot, Lowe's. So was there a family already in your life back then, or how were you managing the traveling? Because I'll say it, for my own case, sometimes it's tough. You have family or lifestyles that you want to kind of have one, right? And the whole traveling for somebody else's agenda, it gets in the way. So were you already somewhat?
I had I in my spare time I did some writing. Out of college, I wrote some short stories and I wrote some poetry. And I met a young lady from Argentina online who was an English teacher. Who actually we talked about writing. We talked about some of those things in the beginning, and we grew that into a friendship and eventually a relationship. So while I was traveling, I guess a positive effect of all that traveling is I was able to make frequent trips to Argentina, and she was able to make frequent trips from Argentina up to see me. So during that time, I was courting a girl. I wasn't married yet at that time, but definitely was in that process.
So now I understand, because I know you are, I would say, almost fluent in Spanish.
Yes.
Yes. So that makes sense. Is that where you picked it up?
No, I mean, I picked up some. As you're aware, Spanish in Argentina is riddled with nuances, I will say, or riddled with using vosotros and using vos as instead of tú or usted, and then lots of colloquialisms, as we would say in English. My nickname, for whatever reason, was either Boludo or Che in my life, depending on who I was talking with.
Boludo, for those of you that, it could be a very endearment thing, or it could be completely the opposite thing. So in your case, not sure where it was coming from.
Hey, depending on who was this, and the same thing with Che. Che. I mean, Che is normally a term of endearment, but could be used as a mockery term, especially from other people from Latin America. It's just a way to point out the words. But no, I have kept Spanish. I've been learning Spanish my whole life.
That's
so
awesome.
It was rudimentary when I first started seeing this lady, and it's probably became better after I lived in a state where most people spoke Spanish.
Gotcha. Was that in Texas?
In California.
Oh, California.
In California.
And because you also lived in California.
Yes. And then even now, living in Ohio, I live in Ohio now, and I have to practice more than I ever have because I have nobody to speak Spanish with.
Oh, well,
so I do almost 30 minutes a day, and then I do about an hour on the weekends of just.
Really?
It's the only way to keep the level up.
So do you? Again, this show, there's no script, we go forward, backwards, up and down. So, we'll go over the place, and then we'll come back to the original questions eventually, right? And I also want to point out that we are at the lobby of the hotel here in Philadelphia. We're both here for the SMC, GATA Spring Management Conference. And, we just happen to coincide on schedules. And I'm like, hey, Brad, can you please be nice enough to be my guinea pig for this whole adventure? And he said yes, so he's a trooper. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
And so going back to the Spanish part.
Yes.
So did you find that it was something that you just wanted to learn because you wanted to be bilingual, or there was something that you said, oh my God, I'm in this area and there's no way I can communicate?
There's a little bit of all of that. I grew up in an area that was very rural. I had some instances in my life where I spent a lot of time alone due to some medical concerns. And when I was physically able or mentally able to really embrace life, I just kind of took the ball and roll with it. My goal is to be able to communicate with as many people in the world as I can. So
I agree.
Spanish, I mean, if I head somewhere else in the world, I'll take a good month and
Well,
try to
it's
learn.
the second biggest, language in the world after, so definitely it helps.
Yeah.
If you're bilingual, English and Spanish, you kind of can go almost anywhere.
Certainly everywhere in the Americas.
Yeah, correct, definitely. So here you are. So now you have moved on, and well, let me go back. So you said some physical issues. I know that. Again, you joke about this all the time, so this is the only reason why I'm going to bring it up, right?
Yes.
Because in fact, I heard that he's running a marathon, or with one of our
5K.
good friends, Rafael, 5K, Rafael Arvelo. So he's going to kick his ass, he says. And but you lost a leg, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So I had when I was born, I had some issues with my lower left leg, and after a bunch of tests, they found a tumor which sort of acted like a malignancy in how it grew, how it replicated, but it acted like a benign tumor in that it didn't displace existing tissue. It would just grow rapidly.
And how old were you when this happened?
That was 6 months.
Oh, really? So it's early on.
Yeah, and they tried lots of ways to they cut the tumor out, the tumor came back, cut the tumor out, tumor came back, and finally I went through an amputation when I was almost 2 years old. So I mean, there's not a good side to this regardless, right? But I guess, because I've seen so many people that have lost a limb or something after they've been an adult for so long. Yeah.
And the mental aspect of kind of restarting the whole life, after being 30, 40, whatever age you are. Do you think that is easier to start that young with something like that, or it doesn't matter? It just sucks?
I don't know. I don't have a very good perspective on it. So I actually have a peer counseling certificate through the amputee organization, which is called the Amputee Coalition. Plug, by the way. So I have a peer
sponsorship
counseling
coming up.
Yeah. I have a peer counseling certificate, basically, and post COVID, we haven't been able to do a lot. We're just finally starting to get back, but my only reference is with juveniles. My only reference is with young people. I have some perspective about some idea about what people's families and what the children going through amputation are going through. I have very little perspective on adults because it was just so much different. I can't imagine it. Most children that go through amputation are either the result of some sort of tumor, osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer, or accidents, or birth defects. So there's a different mindset. I think they haven't, they have to start that way and work their way up. I will say that there's the last 20 years or 30 years has been a golden age for medical discoveries related to amputation. And it was a lot harder in the 70s and 80s.
I can imagine. Just like anything, technology, every week it's worth 5 years, in the technology world.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, and I got to give you kudos because, in fact, I didn't know this when I first met you, and I only found out because you brought it up.
Yeah.
Hey, every once in a while I get up out of the bed and I'm limping because I just, everything hurts. It is, but I never knew this until he brought it up. So, you stay active, you travel, and so kudos to you because you didn't let that become a crutch.
Yeah, an impediment, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So again, kudos to you. Now, so here we are. So you have Lowe's, Home Depot, college, the whole traveling Argentina, learning Spanish, and so I'm assuming you are in your late 20s
I was.
You are.
Yes.
And so not soon after. So what did you do after that? Before you came into the welding industry?
Well,
there's a gap.
I found myself out of a job due to some changes, and had my resume online, and I got a call from Lincoln Electric through their subsidiary Harris, and they were rolling out a retail program, and they asked me if I wanted to be a part of it, and I said I definitely would like to talk to you guys. And by the way, I know a bunch of people that work for Lincoln Electric in Northeast Ohio, where I grew up. Lincoln Electric is one of the companies, and I say that with all sincerity, if you're a blue collar worker, if you're someone who's looking for a lifelong career, Lincoln Electric is one of the 4 or 5 companies in Northeast Ohio that everybody wants to work for. And
so as you guys can see, we have 2 plugs already so far.
Yeah,
all right, just saying.
I'm not like I'm not getting paid by either of them, but
so he says. We'll find out.
But so I started working with Lincoln Electric. It's about the same time that I was going to get married to this young lady from Argentina, and she had a 4-year-old son. And we wanted to bring him from Argentina. He had started school at 4 in Argentina, preschool. He a very intelligent boy, but did not speak that much English. Even though his mother was an English teacher, Spanish teacher.
Gotcha.
It's really hard unless you're constantly speaking.
Yeah, immersed. Yeah.
So our struggle was, we were in Ohio. I was doing this job for Lincoln Electric and Harris for their Home Depot rollouts, and I couldn't find a school that I felt would not ostracize him.
Gotcha.
And so I actually left Lincoln Electric and went to work for another company in Dallas, Cleveland-based company, sent me to Dallas. I got married. I brought both of them here from Argentina. And then 9 months later, the company got sold to John Deere, and I found myself out of a job. And again, saying nothing but great things about Harris or Lincoln Electric. I called Harris and I said, "Hey, I would love to come back. Have you had a place for me?" And they did. They just happened to have an opening in Los Angeles. They called me back fairly quickly and said it's going to take a few months. But,
Gotcha.
Come interview with us again, and maybe we can get you out in Los Angeles. And 4 months later.
So I guess you did a good job. That's why you can never burn a bridge.
Yes.
And it's very important, especially in this industry.
Yes.
Hey, you can drink some water. That's water for you.
I'm good.
All right. Just making sure.
I loaded up. I didn't.
He thinks I'm going to charge him or something.
I know it's like $7. It'll get thrown on my tab.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it is on his room number. So drink all you want. So now here we are back with Harris.
Yeah.
And what then? After that, what happened?
So they moved me to Los Angeles. This was 2005. I moved to Los Angeles. I basically inherited a sales territory that was Los Angeles County and a couple of counties to the north, Bakersfield, Central Coast, and Hawaii.
That sucks.
Well, it's a good and bad. It's a good and bad thing, but I had by that time my wife's son was about 6 or 7, and so obviously I wanted to try to spend every day I could. So calling on Hawaii, you're often gone for a week and a half, which is sort of tough.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's had kids, it's always, your children a lot of times give you that extra strength to just do what you got to do every day.
Yep,
they fill your tank, or they they charge your battery, I guess.
That is so true. I remarried, and now I am the dad of 2 little girls. So I have a 27 and a 24 from my previous life, and now I change sex on my kids. That came out wrong.
Yes.
That sounded wrong in so many ways. Anyway, so I have 2 boys, and now I have 2 girls from a second marriage. Please understand what I just said, right? And yeah, it's amazing that I travel so much and I come back, and like you said, they just recharge you. Yeah. So there's something about them that they just ground you. So that's awesome to hear that. So here we are. Now you are working for.
So I run my own. I won't say run my own, but I'm a general manager for a medium-sized welding distributor in Columbus, Ohio, called Central Ohio Welding. Been in business 111 years.
Oh.
I put a lot of time the last 6 years into kind of revamping my part of the company,
Because
been a
it's
challenge.
employee owned, right?
Yeah, we're employee owned. We have a larger fabrication division and a smaller welding supply gas producer division. And you know, I've been doing that about almost well a little over 6 years now.
So you're the GM.
Yeah, and a vice president of the company as well.
All right.
So
What would you say? Is there a difference between a GM and a VP? What would you say the difference is?
So I use, it's just, I mean, it could be different for different companies. There's something about the Midwest, which is, in my opinion, from living in multiple states, is uniquely humble.
Okay.
And when it goes to title, I just put down what I think. I want to convey the fact that I'm in charge without having an arrogant sounding title. So I use general manager because it's like, okay, he's in charge, but you know, I prefer not to have a title at all, and everybody just to know it through diffusion or osmosis, but that's not going to happen. But there's something unique about the Midwest that, you know, we don't tend to hold titles over each other's heads.
I wish everyone was like that, because I do know some people that they love that business card to say VP, you know, or vice versa, and they just love that title. But whatever, that's, you know, if it makes you happy, it makes you happy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Live and let live. So when you travel for the company, like GATA, SMC, or any other buying group that you guys belong to, whatever that is, what is it that you're trying to get out of those trips?
It's different. It depends on, like, for this one. So I like the SMC, the Spring Management Conference, because it's a learning event, because there's usually a bunch of good speakers. The vendors kind of roll out the red carpet, and you can get a lot out of the show. As an employee-owned company, I don't spend my company's money, I guess, brazenly, or I try to make sure that I get the most for the money that we're spending. And Spring Management is one of those things. Now, I always go to FabTech. In general, I'm very technical at what I do, and my team is very technical. And I look at FabTech as, okay, I want to see the latest and greatest of everything that's out there. Some of the other industry events I don't go to. I don't.
You don't see the value.
I don't
the
see
ROI.
the value. Yeah, I don't see the value in them. I mean, it's, you know,
and it makes sense. It's a big expense. You know. You know, we are, or at least I am, on the manufacturing side of things, and we have to be at many of these shows.
Yeah.
And when you run the numbers, definitely it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even know if you're going to get anything back. But it's almost like you cannot afford not to be there. Go figure, right?
Yes.
But I get that. I get it that, you know, on your side. And we're almost done, I promise.
Sure. No, you're fine.
When you're traveling, because I know you love to take pictures, as I do.
Yes.
I know you like to travel, and you were, what was your long trip that you were just in?
I was in Spain for 11 days.
For 11 days, right?
Yes.
You know, the life, this guy, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So what is it about traveling on a personal basis that you like? You know, what's the sex appeal about traveling?
So from a very personal perspective, or from a very, I guess, going back to when I was young, I spent a lot of time when I was young, first with the amputation, but then also having to go back and have successive surgeries every few years, because your bones, your tibia, your fibula, they'll keep growing, and you want them to. You don't want to have, you know, two limbs that are different lengths.
Gotcha.
But they'll grow through the existing skin, and then you have to go back and kind of get the bones, you know, cut back. And during that process, I mean, it could be 3 months or it could be 4 months where you're not with your classmates. I mean, you might be in a cast, you might be learning from home, you might have a tutor. You spend a lot of time staring out windows. When I used to write, that was one of my themes. It's like, as a child, you're sitting there staring out windows in a rural part of the country. And when I became able to, I wanted to see every single thing I could, go every single place I could. Now there are negatives to this. because sometimes you can get bored easily, or
That's
you
true.
can get stagnant. But the other thing is, I have a very open-minded family. Both my parents and at least one side of my family, my grandparents were always people that traveled.
Really? That
Our
helps.
cousins and aunts and uncles, everybody travels, and on one side of my family, they go places, they do things.
And there's no other way of learning other cultures and accepting other people, and by doing just that. Traveling, it makes you think, and it makes you realize at the end of the day, we're all looking for the same damn thing.
Yes.
Just family, love, acceptance, friendships, and experiences. It's that's all. It's so yeah, I get it, because I love to travel as well. And to finalize things here, and again, thank you so much, Brad, for
Yeah.
taking the time.
My pleasure.
Being in the industry now for 21 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
would you say that what kept you in the industry? And also, would you see yourself working in any other industry now that you've been in it for 21 years? And I know that's hard to answer.
Yeah. So what keeps me in the industry is something that's not hard to answer. So it's the ability to affect someone else's business in a positive way day after day, while still making enough money to support myself and my family. Point blank, one sentence. There are industries which
I
have
think
been,
you knew this question was
No,
coming. That
no,
was
I-
way too good of an answer.
That's
But
like I had the elevator speech just
Holy
planned, like
jeez.
boom, I've got it. But it's that ability where the knowledge is still on our part, like it's on our side. So you have a manufacturing concern, you have a contractor construction concern, and someone says, I have problem A, and I say, I'm going to go out and make your problem disappear, and I'm going to still be able to make money doing it. That's intoxicating. It gives you a sense of purpose, gives you a sense of why you do something day in and day out. The second part of the question is, yes, I could see myself doing something, but only in a way that it would relate to more international travel, more communication with people from other cultures, more
Gotcha.
something that adds that, but internationally. That's probably the only place that I would ever want to leave this industry.
That it would call you.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that I'm going to say here on camera, it's that we have to do a trip together to the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
And you can come and stay, in my apartment, and I'll be your guide for a few days. And I think you'll love, because I keep learning stuff. I was just there for a few days, and I saw some things I've never seen before. But then again, I left in '92. So, Brad, I want to thank you again
Yes.
for taking the time. I think I'm going to say this quite a few times during these interviews, that hopefully I get to talk to a few other friends. If they keep saying yes, I'll keep turning on the camera. But one of the reasons why I like this industry is because of people like you, that are always friendly, always willing. And it's not because of how you treat me specifically, it's how
Yeah.
I see you treat others and how others talk about you. So, you're a stand-up guy, and thank you again. And I'll see you in the next show, or I'll see you around. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.